And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to Preneurcast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gocher.
How well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the regular programming of PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher, and him, Pete Williams.
Hey, how are you, mate?
Pretty good. I think I've just about got that jet lag out of my system.
It has been a very crazy 2 or 3 weeks in our world, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I really have been operating in about 3 or 4 time zones all at once for quite some time now.
It has been a very awesome 2 or 3 weeks, but it has been a little chaotic, which has meant the show's been a day or so out in terms of getting released. So we apologise for that, but thank you for our regular listeners for sticking by us and checking out every episode. And obviously, welcome to the new PreneurCast listeners. But yeah, for those who don't know what's been going on, Dom and I have been gallivanting in South Florida, which has been very, very cool.
Gallivanting. I like that word, gallivanting.
So hanging out with Rich SCHEFREN of Strategic Profits team and his offices down there, sort of doing some work with them. And then also while we were there, we launched a new training and consulting program referred to and called Profit Hacks, as the original incarnation of that program has gone out exclusively to his high-end clients, which has been received very, very well so far. We did a 6-hour live stream, like a live telecast for 6 hours to kick it all off, which was a heck of a lot of fun, full of shenanigans and a bit of craziness, but it was very, very cool.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you were an absolute star. I still cannot believe that you managed to stay with it for 6 hours. You and Rich were phenomenal on that. Folks, don't, by the way, that the Profit Hacks thing was an internal launch for Rich's high-end clients, but we will be talking some more about that soon. Obviously to the Preneur community, and at some point we'll be giving you the full announcement when it goes fully live. But for now, we'll keep feeding bits in as they become relevant. There's lots of stories about what went on behind the scenes over at Strategic Profits. It was a very interesting thing to experience, that whole live stream, live webcast production. It was definitely a step into a different world, even for me, Pete.
It was a lot of fun, this working with the team and everything beyond just the live stream. I mean, obviously that was probably the pinnacle of the week and the highlight, but we were there for almost an entire week and worked with his team on a whole bunch of stuff, which was very, very cool. And now we're back, working with all the initial clients who have taken on Profit Hacks to be part of their business and their processes and workflows, which is very, very cool. So working with them quite closely, and everything else we've got going on as well. So it doesn't seem to stop around the Preneur community. It only seems to be growing, which is very, very cool.
It is very cool. And speaking of growing and new members of things, we have a new member to our team here. One of our new suppliers. It's actually an existing supplier, somebody that we've used for quite some time. But he's offering his service now out to the world, and this is very relevant to anybody that follows along with PreneurCast and all the Preneur community activities. Matthew, the chap that does quite a lot of our transcriptions for the various Preneur products, has set up a service called Get Transcribed and that's over at gettranscribed.com. And Matthew has a whole team to deliver transcriptions from your video or audio files back to you in a high quality, well formatted kind of way. He's got a range of services over there, and he's offering a 25% discount on your first order if you mention PreneurCast. So that's over at gettranscribed.com. And if anybody's followed along with any of the things that we've published recently, especially the content leverage system videos that we talked about previously, and I'll link to that in the show notes, then you'll know that getting your audio and video transcribed is a great way of generating extra media types, or modalities as we call them, from a core piece of quality content. So it's great to have a reliable transcription service. And as I say, we use Matthew and his team over at gettranscribed.com. So pop over there and give them a try.
Absolutely. So a big shout out to Matthew, and thanks for continually working with us. But it's good to see that people that we work with are actually growing their businesses. It's very, very cool as well, and we can sort of now support them who have supported us and help grow their business through our listener base and our community out there. So everyone who's whether you've got a podcast needs transcribing, or whether you're just trying to get more content out on the web using the content leverage system type process, transcriptions is a great way to go, and couldn't recommend Matthew highly enough.
Excellent. So, I think that's enough of what's gone before. What's coming next, Pete? What are we talking about this week?
Well, I wanted to talk about timing and the importance of timing in your marketing and your business processes. So there's a couple of sort of points that I think we could discuss quite in depth, and we'll try and do as much as we can in the time allotted in a normal, obviously, podcast episode. But let's chat timing.
Okay, I'm intrigued by this. The grander, this is one of those grander concepts that certainly it's been something that I've not been too au fait with in the past. As I learn about the different elements of growing your business and marketing and promotion, I take things one step at a time. As we talked about serial versus parallel, I try and learn a new technique and apply that. And timing is one of those things that I know is important, but it's to me it was always the thing that was additional. First of all, I needed to get it done. Then I needed to get it done at the right time in the right order. So I'm definitely interested in talking about this with you this week.
All right, so let's jump into it. People who have listened to the show for quite a while would probably be familiar with the Preneur hierarchy, which is a marketing framework that we talk about quite a bit on the show about when and what sort of marketing you should be doing. And obviously, one of the lower level foundations of the hierarchy, the pyramid there, is marketing to people who have their wallets half open, searching for a solution that you're offering. Now, obviously, that's pretty straightforward, but one thing we haven't really spoken about on the show is the timing of that. When should you actually be doing that? Because sometimes people are searching for different things throughout the year based on calendars and buying cycles and all that sort of stuff. So I thought we could kind of talk about timing in that context throughout the show today.
Okay, so things like seasonality then, yeah?
Yeah, well, think of a travel agent would probably be a great analog example. Obviously online example as well. Expedia and TripAdvisor and all these sites these days are quite huge. But if you think from a travel agent's perspective, now there's obviously people like me who leave their travel arrangements to the last minute and need to, fly out on a trip and book the trip to the overseas destination 2 or 3 weeks out from the trip, which is probably uncommon, but for business travel it probably is common. But thinking about what most people do when they're booking holidays through travel agents is that in winter is when they're probably thinking about their summer vacation. It's like, I want to go somewhere warm. They don't have the funds or the time off work or the flexibility to go away right now. Maybe they've got family and things like that, and they're booking trips 6 months in advance. So, it's through the winter months you should be marketing the summer holidays, not necessarily the winter holidays. Obviously, snow and snow trips and things like for day trips are popular right now. But again, a lot of people, if they're wanting to go away, skiing for a week, don't plan that, weeks out. They're planning that months and months out. So it just comes down to sort of really contemplating your target market and the products you offer, and when are people in that buying cycle? When is it actually, from a seasonality perspective, they're actually looking for that particular solution? Because some people aren't looking for the Christmas holiday or Christmas vacation at the start of December. They're actually looking for that Christmas vacation, that solution in July or June, 6 months out.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember years and years and years ago commenting on this before I was working for myself. In fact, I think probably before I even had a job. I remember come January, you would start to see on a television adverts on the television for holidays, for summer holidays, and I remember commenting, well, it's January. Why would I want to know about holidays? But that's absolutely what happens. Once you understand your market, it's not just about seasonality though, is it? Because it's about understanding your market and what they're looking for and when they're looking for it. Because when you understand that, then you can predict this timing. The holiday example, the travel company example is a great one because I think it's universal. I think just about everybody can understand that situation that you described there. But it's wider than that, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, to sort of push that point a little bit is that obviously there's going to be people all year round looking for a summer vacation or a ski trip or a Christmas vacation. So doing your proactive online marketing so you are in front of those people when they're searching for that with SEO and pay-per-click, because the beautiful thing with those sort of marketing activities, you can only pay when people are actively responding to your marketing. So someone searches in Google Christmas vacation ideas, and that's why your ads, whether it be SEO ads or AdWords ads, actually appear. Now, obviously, that is a great, foundational marketing practice that everyone should be implementing, and we spoke about that recently when we were talking about our low-hanging fruit episode. But if you're going to be doing anything beyond that sort of, and I call that almost reactive marketing, because you're reacting to the market telling you what they want. You're standing there ready to go, but you have to react and wait for them to actually proactively search for the keyword or the key phrase. Whereas if you're going to actually do some hypothetical radio advertising, maybe some direct mail campaigns, some TV, some letterbox shops, all the other sort of various marketing activities you can do to generate traffic for your business. It's in this instance where you have to really be conscious about the market and what they're actually doing right now and what is going to be relevant to them right now, because you need to sort of hit the biggest pie. What is the majority of your market thinking about and doing right now? Because AdWords and SEO give you that all year round, cover all bases type approach, which for a lot of businesses can be enough to actually sustain a very, very profitable business and a very, very large business. But if you want to grow beyond that, or you're a very niche business and you're a very localized business, there's not enough traffic in SEO and AdWords, there has to be other marketing mediums you can do, and have to think about the timing of your actual campaigns and your messages to match what the market is actually doing.
Yeah, I really like the way that you segmented those two approaches, because I think that's a great way to give people almost, it's not really a checklist, it's a decision point. It's a, as you say, the pay-per-click or the content network type advertising, banner advertising and things like that, as long as it is on a pay-per-click basis, is a great thing to do as that baseline in the background all year round advertising, because the investment is the outlay that you make is only there if somebody clicks on that advert, first and foremost from a cost point of view, and secondly it's presented to the people when they take an action, when they are making a search, when they're looking for something or they have been looking for something that's related to your topic. So it's an effective way of advertising, and it's quite a good return on investment. And those, I think, are the really two of the things, the underlying concepts here. It's effectiveness and return on investment, because the second set of advertising or marketing ideas that you talked about, where you're talking about maybe doing direct mail campaigns or running advertising in print media or paying for a radio spot, or just trying to get on the radio is slightly less costly way of doing that. But paying anything where you're outlaying and maybe producing something, producing media or print or whatever, then you need to be looking very carefully on how effective that's going to be and on your return on investment. And that's where timing really becomes important, because it does matter when where people are in their buying cycle, or where they are in their minds right now, and what the kind of things they're going to be looking for. Does that fit in with what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's definitely absolutely along the same sort of lines. But I'm going to take something that you mentioned at the start of what you just spoke about then, and kind of just clarify it and almost change it a little bit, because you were mentioned content marketing, which is, for those who don't know, it's actually advertising web banners, so sort of the billboards of the internet, on websites that are in Google's network. And that doesn't mean Google's websites that they own, but I, as a website owner, can actually allow Google to be the ad distributor and display ads on my site for various companies who use their platform to make that happen. There may be a more articulate way of explaining that, I'm sure. But the issue with that is I don't class that as reactive marketing, and that doesn't fit into what I'm talking about, because the content advertising is where you put banners on other people's websites promoting your products. Now, yes, a lot of those adverts will be triggered, and the ad that is shown is a relative ad based on the words and keywords of the web page that the person is looking at. So Google actually matches the advert that's appearing on the page with the content. Now, obviously, that again is relative and somewhat reactive. If someone is actually on a website, hypothetically, with a blog post or an article about Aspen holidays in winter, obviously they're looking for a winter getaway. So an advert that relates to that is very relevant and it is good timing. But with things like remarketing, which is a new service Google has, which again is pay-per-click or cost per click advertising, where you only pay when someone clicks on the ad, that to me is still a different, almost a proactive type of marketing, because how remarketing works is someone comes to your website, be it a travel agent site, to sort of continue the analogy through the show, and they've looked at ski Aspen winter holidays, hypothetically. You can tag that person as someone who's been to that particular page of your website and is interested in winter holidays. Now, as people browse the rest of the web, be it a food website, checking out the basketball scores, any website in any context that allows Google's network to display the ads, your ads for winter holidays can follow them around the web no matter where they are. So that, again, if someone is actually then 2 days, 2 weeks later looking at the NBA scores, or maybe a running tips blog, or how to go fishing, whatever it might be, your winter holiday ads can actually appear on that page, which is completely irrelevant to the context of what they're looking at right now. So that's not reactive, because in that instance, when they're looking at that particular web page about the basketball scores or on Amazon or whatever it might be, they're not looking for a holiday. They're looking for something completely different. So those adverts are not timed well. They're not reactive adverts matching the person's current intent with their wallet half open. Yes, they still might be looking for a holiday, but their wallet at that very instance is in their back pocket. Don't have it open trying to buy a holiday. So the message you have to actually push at that point is a completely different message to a reactive marketing message that you'd have if someone was actually proactively looking for a holiday, because the timing has changed in that person. Does that make sense, how I've sort of changed that? It's still cost per click, so it's still effective type of marketing, because you only pay when someone clicks on the ad, but not all cost per click is reactive type marketing.
Yeah, actually, that's a really excellent example that you gave there, and really clarified, again, a division of making a decision. As you're going through and choosing the type of marketing that you're going to do, then it is important to choose the appropriate type and the appropriate investment. And I guess, it talks to the general point that I was making, which is what we're talking about here, which is what's going to be the most effective. But it specifically comes back to your point about timing and about what you describe it as, whether or not they have their wallet out or not, which I think is a great way of describing it. But it is really, that's what it's about. Are they in that mindset right then and there? In the reactive marketing that we talked about with cost per click, it literally is a second by second thing. If they punch in a search for Aspen holidays, you're pretty sure they're looking for an Aspen holiday or some kind of winter vacation. But on the grander scale, which was your original point, that people go through these cycles. The most obvious one is a seasonal cycle, when they're potentially looking for things. Now, just to maybe extend that and maybe look at another example, one of the other things that depends on timing, and it's maybe that's something that you are more in control of in your own business if you're not a travel agent, maybe it's things like servicing of a vehicle. that's another form of timing. They need to do it on a regular basis, yeah?
Absolutely. Yep. And it's the same sort of thing, is that if you have a service, it's a perfect another point, and it's a different point, but absolutely a very important point. And there's a few other, separate points I want to make throughout the show, is that if you're in that sort of industry where, maybe you're a dentist, you service cards, you're a house cleaner, you're an accountant, where the type of service you offer should be a repetitive service, make sure you have some sort of automated system in place that reminds people to do that. Maybe you're a hairdresser, that at the time of the haircut, you're booking in that next appointment straight away, because so often, people can get an extra 10-15% additional sales through their door by having just a system in place to remind people, because everyone is distracted, everyone is lazy, everyone is busy, and if they were simply reminded and told, they would come back one additional time a year than they wouldn't. If you leave people to their own devices, they'll get their hair cut 6 times a year instead of 7. They'll get their car serviced 3 times a year instead of 4. All that sort of stuff. They get their house cleaned 12 times a year instead of 24 times a year. It's all about having that system in place to make it easy for people to keep on top of the things they know they should keep on top of if they had the time.
Yeah, I mean, can I just pick up on something that you just said there? Because I think it's actually, again, speaks back to the effectiveness, but also the investment, return on investment. You said that if you're in one of these repetitive businesses that has regular cycles, like whether it's car servicing or whether it's hairdressers or whatever it is, so far we've talked about marketing in the sense that of sending something out, in the sense of you could almost call it interruption marketing, putting something physically in front of somebody at a time to try and catch them in a mindset. But the thing you just said there is the ultimate and the most cost-effective, highest return on investment, and that is, while they are currently having that service or taking part in that, taking that service, having you do that service for them, whether it's car servicing, haircut, whatever it is, carpet cleaning, anything, all it takes is for you to have yourself or train your staff to say to the person when you've completed that particular service, would you like to book yourself in for the next cycle?
No,
6 weeks for a haircut.
No.
Oh.
Language difference. Not would you. You have to future pace it. I'm going to book you in for a follow-up visit in 6 weeks' time. Just future pace. Slight language difference makes a huge difference. So it's not would you like me to, because that's a yes or no question. It's I'm going to book you in for the follow-up visit in 6 weeks, or I'm going to book you in for a follow-up visit in 6 or 7 weeks. So the choice is not yes or no, it's 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Slight difference, huge profit difference.
And do you know what? That future pacing language thing is something I really, really have to work on. And I really think that we could do a big segment, not necessarily a whole show, but a big segment on how people can work future pacing in, because that's a great example. I don't know if you can we just go over that again slowly, just so that people can see the difference between what I said and what you said, because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, I thought, hey, I'm not that wrong, but when you talked about it being future pacing, I saw where you were going.
Concept was great, execution needed a bit of a tweak.
Exactly. and that's the thing is again, we're plussing these things. First of all, just to be clear, you weren't saying, no, don't book people in at the time they're there. That was the point I was making, that getting your staff to take the next booking while the person's still there is pretty much the most cost-effective way of getting that next booking. But how you do it is what I want to go back to talking about. Because Pete interrupted me there and said that the way that I had said it was not an effective way to get somebody to do it. And what I said was, let's just do this. Let's role play this, shall we? I said, get your staff to ask, would you like me to book you in for your next appointment?
And as a consumer, I can say yes or no.
That's right. But your way of saying it, and you call this future pacing it, would be.
So I'm going to book you in for a follow-up appointment in 6 or 7 weeks. So you're still giving the person a choice, so it feels like they are in control. But the choice is between 6 weeks away or 7 weeks away. It's not a choice between yes or no. So it's a choice between two yeses.
And what's the psychology behind this future pacing, just in general? I mean, I really do think it's really important. It makes a huge difference to any kind of negotiation or sales sequence. I've seen it happen many, many times, and I definitely need to bring more of it into what I do. But what's the psychology behind that future pacing? Very quickly, Pete.
Well, it's part of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming in a holistic sort of sense. It's also just a long-term, long talked about sales technique. You know, people want to be able to have choice. You don't want to sort of force something down their throat, obviously. But if you're giving them a choice of two positive outcomes for you, it's easy to get that positive outcome. The person can still say, oh, no, I don't want to book in for 6 or 7 weeks. I will call you back. So the person is still, got the choice. You're not, forcing them to make a decision like that. But it's future pacing. It means you're just pacing the conversation to the future you're after.
So you're really talking about it as if it's already happened. Is that
absolutely
a good way of saying it?
Yeah, that's a perfect way to sort about future pacing, because you're pacing the conversation as if the outcome you want is a fait accompli. It's going to happen. You just need to obviously just follow through the process.
Yeah, and it's not underhand. It's the same question. And as you say, it's a way they still have the option. You give them two positive options, and they can still say, actually, no, I don't want to make that booking right now, or I can't, or whatever. But it is an incredibly effective. Those two things. One, asking the person at the time you're still in front of them, because they're still in the hairdressing salon. You're still there with your carpet cleaning equipment in their house, or they've come to pick up their car. That's step one. But step two, or future pacing, presenting it as if it's already been done, can have a huge extra benefit and a huge increase in your conversion or opt-in.
Absolutely. And I think, and using that hairdresser salon example to take it to the next level, obviously the first step is to actually just try and secure that next booking at the most convenient time for you as the entrepreneur, but also in a beneficial way for the client. There's no point having a car service 6 times a year when really 3 or 4 times is more than adequate. But the next level up is making it some sort of continuity program. And Kennedy's All-American Barber Shop, which is a franchise in the US, which is fantastic because it's a membership-based hairdressing salon. So rather than someone paying per haircut, they pay a membership, a monthly membership fee, which entitles them to a certain level of or a certain number of haircuts. And I think next time we hit Florida to hang out with Rich and the Strategic Profits team, we should do a video outside the I think it's the original Kennedy's Barbershop down there, and we can kind of talk about that. But I think an episode in the future for Preneurcast on continuity in business could be very, very cool.
Yeah, because that is a whole different world of kind of creating timing, isn't it?
Well, exactly right. You are creating that timing, or you're almost creating a vortex or a world where timing's irrelevant.
Exactly. So, have we got any more examples where timing of different kinds of timing that we can look for?
Yeah. Look, part of the reason that this actual whole episode kind of popped into my mind was off the back of some planning and some discussions internally we were doing as part of our on-hold advertising business. One of the businesses we have is onholdadvertising.com.au, where we actually do on-hold phone messages for companies across Australia. And there's a couple of different solutions we offer, and it's not a pitch for this or anything like that, but one of the services we offer is a solution where the hardware has a built-in clock, where we actually can pre-record and pre-script messages for clients that change automatically throughout the year. And that's where the whole holiday example for the travel agent came up, because we were talking about this, of how some examples of how they can work for different clients. And obviously what we do for our travel agents is suggest that they use this sort of automated solution that we pre-record a message that plays during the winter months promoting the summer holidays. And that's where that whole idea came from.
Can I just stop you there? Just back up a few steps, just to clarify to anybody who hasn't come across the concept of on-hold advertising. In general, again, we're not pimping, but I am aware of this as a technique that's used in various industries. If you are a business that is likely to have people call you on a telephone and there's a possibility that they may be put on hold, the idea of on-hold advertising, which is a great timing thing in its own right, these people have called you, they've called you about some level of service, they are showing an interest, they're opting in to your services in one way or another, and instead of playing varying levels of quality of music,
or silence, or chimes, or static,
or silence, or chimes, or some, usually, actually, I've seen a correlation between the more money a company has, the worse quality those on-hold things are. Some telecommunications company that I have to deal with quite a lot over here in Spain has some of the most awful sound quality you've ever come across, which is truly ironic. But so while these people are waiting on hold, rather than giving them awful music, why not give them a message about your other services? Why not, before they even come on the phone to ask the question they were going to ask, or ask about the thing they were going to ask about, let them know the other things you do, or some other thing. And Pete, your example there was your travel agent advertising summer holidays in the message that's played in the winter. And I do think, by the way, that any system that can automatically trigger that on its own, so you can preload it just like an email autoresponder, has to be a pretty amazing thing.
Well, exactly. That's the whole concept. And you touched on something that, which is brilliant, because most people don't really get it, and it's advertising something different. And this is sort of the next step that I wanted to talk about. Another example for timing is that, as a travel agent, there's no point putting someone on hold and telling them that we can arrange your holiday and your flights with American Airlines, Qantas, Delta, or Qatar Airlines, because people know that. That's the reason they've called up. They know you can book holidays.
That sounds like you've actually experienced that, Pete.
Oh no, it's just the sales examples we give on the conversation when we train our staff. Things like that.
Okay.
So I've done it a few times, but what you want to do is sell the lesser known services or the auxiliary products. So for a travel agent, it's travel insurance or summer holidays in winter. If you are an accounting practice, there's no point. You've spent all this money to get the phone to ring. You've done all this advertising, this pay-per-click, this banner ads, this direct mail to get the phone to ring. You want to maximise that person on hold. So why not, rather than tell them about the things they're aware of and what forced them to ring, there's no point telling an accounting prospect that you can do their tax return, because it's pretty obvious, and that's probably the primary reason for the phone call. You've already told them and educated them enough about your core concept and your core products to get them to take action and pick up the phone. So while they're on hold, you should be doing one of two things: reinforcing that you are the person to deal with, so testimonials, case studies, awards. So this is where the reinforcement marketing comes in. So it's a different sort of timing message. So the timing's different, so your message is different. Or marketing lesser known products and services. You may have a client who is dealing with you for their tax return but didn't know you could do a self-managed superannuation fund or 401k, or that you also do life insurance. It's the lesser known products they weren't aware of. So this is again a timing scenario. They've called for one thing, they've engaged with your business for one core reason. At this point, market auxiliary and lesser known services, which is something that you touched on, which is brilliant, because most people don't really get that timing element of when to communicate what.
But it is just so important. I think it needs clarifying, because we've talked about this in a previous episode where I've had examples of some of my clients who have had people literally in front of them saying that they'd gone somewhere else to buy a particular training course simply because they didn't know that training was available with them. And they were lifetime customers. These people had been through a huge number of training courses with this particular training centre. But this one particular course, which was, by the way, quite a lucrative one for the training centre, they'd missed out on simply by not informing their clients. So that is, again, another really important thing about using timing, using the fact that people are there with you, or that you're communicating or have this opportunity to communicate with them. So rather than tell them things they already know, it's a bit like, as you say, I mean, it's a great example. Someone's ringing an accountant, telling them that you can do their books for them isn't news. It's not going to increase anything for you other than possibly the annoyance of your person on hold.
Absolutely. So I guess, we're sort of getting, fairly deep into the episode today. So I thought I'd give two more quick examples, and won't go too in depth, but some other sort of things in terms of timing of marketing, and sort of consider what the time and the experience people are going through. What happens after they buy from you? What marketing are you doing to that person? And I'm not talking about upsell marketing necessarily. Obviously, that's important, and you should be doing that. We've spoken about that many, many times, particularly as part of the whole 7 levers conversation we continually have here on the show, is the importance of getting people to come back and buy more additional services and solutions for you. But what about stick marketing? And this is something I don't think we've spoken about on the show before.
No, we should definitely come back to this topic.
Yeah, let me make a note, because I know we keep promising different episodes and we keep forgetting about them. So I'll make that note there.
I'll insert a scribbling sound effect there later. Not.
But what you want to try and do is, like, what is your refund rate? Hopefully you're offering some sort of guarantee and things like that. And it's inevitable that if you're doing solid marketing, you are going to get a small refund rate, because it's a sad byproduct. Hopefully your refund rate's very, very small. But if you've got effective marketing, people are going to take you up as a trial, and it's a way to get them off the fence. And sometimes your product and solution just won't be right for that person, which is completely understandable. It's just nature. And if you have that solid refund rate, you'll entice people across the over the fence, over that byline, who actually get huge rewards from dealing from you they wouldn't have otherwise received if they didn't jump across that byline, which is what the guarantee did for them. But obviously, that some of those people who do are going to want a refund. But what can you actually do to sort of help keep the customer sticky, help them stick with you for a long period of time, beyond just that initial sort of purchase, and really not only use your products and services, but don't just ask for a refund, but actually use your products and services. Because a lot of us, no matter what you're doing in business, so many people don't maximize the value they can get from the transaction they had. So what can you actually do to market to them to ensure they maximize that value from the product and services that you've delivered, so they come back for more, they tell their friends, and don't ask for refunds? And it's the first two things out of that, which is really, really important to do. So stick marketing is something that everyone should be working out a way to incorporate into the timing and marketing of their business.
So, and the timing of that is very simple. It's after someone has bought from you, which is, I think, one of the least things that has given the least awareness for a lot of people, a lot of businesses. Once somebody's bought,
they just do delivery.
I think they just deliver, and then that's it. And I do think it's a very important time, and there is some very important elements of timing there. And as I say, we should come back to stick, but not just letting someone go just because they've bought and you've delivered. I think can make a huge difference to the continued success of your business with that client.
Yep, absolutely. So there's the delivery and the stick, and then there's the upsell, cross-sell, post-sale timings. There's two distinct marketing timings that have to happen post-transaction or post-confirmation of the sale. You don't ask for the dessert before you actually deliver the meal. And then the last thing is obviously just, the upsell side of things is, think about, would you like fries with that? Once people are actually consuming your product, what additional services can you actually offer that support and enhance that actual transaction? So not just general marketing to make sure they actually use the original product they purchased, but what else can you offer them that actually enhances the product beyond their initial transaction? Now, there's sort of, think about, nail guns, for example, if we use a hardware analogy. Well, maybe the nail gun that person purchased, because all they needed at that particular time and all they thought they needed was a nail gun with a power cable. Well, what could you actually do post-sale to actually educate them about the benefits of buying the portable battery pack to actually make the experience of the nail gun even better for them? So that's a different sort of marketing message you can make. That's not upselling a brand new product. You're upselling a complementary product which will actually enhance their initial purchase. So that's another sort of timing and marketing piece you can do based on the actual experience and the timing of the buy cycle that particular prospect, and in this case client, has gone through.
Yeah, and again, going full circle now, right back to one of the original points you made, which is that we're now coming back to the Preneur hierarchy. We're coming back to that bottom level, which is that the easiest people to market to, the most responsive market that you have, is people who have already bought from you. You will get the most leverage and the best return on investment for your efforts. And also, it takes very often, in most cases, less effort to market to people that have already bought to you. So that example, those two examples of timing that I think some people just aren't aware of, don't think of. Certainly the stick session, the stick period, the timing, the thing that you do after they've bought, to make sure that they get the most out of using whatever it is that they've bought from you is important. And again, easy, because it's a small thing. It can be a very, very small thing. It can be an email, it can be something in the post, it could even be something in the box, and we'll talk about stick in another episode. But the follow-up after that, the upsell marketing, it's relatively easy. You know who they are, you know what they bought, you can come up with some kind of complementary product or service to recommend to them. And if they bought from you, they like the product, they like your service, they're highly likely to take your recommendation and buy from you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a recommendation for additional products and services, but also recommendations for products and services they probably should have bought during the initial transaction but didn't see the value in. So there's almost two different type of post-sale upsells that people need to differentiate from and market. But one thing I do want to try and do before we do that stick episode is come up with a better name than stick. It's just I don't love the idea of stick marketing. It just sort of has this, I don't know, weird connotation in my mind. So we need to think of a different word we can use that it culminates and covers everything we spoke about. But
we could even come up with a new Preneur word like strategery.
Yes, I like strategery. But any of our listeners, if anyone's got anything, any ideas for a term that they may have heard other people use that we can talk about on that particular episode, make sure you email us or send us a tweet. There's support@preneurgroup.com. I'm at Preneur on Twitter. You're at dgoucher. So get in touch with us, whether about that or just the episodes in general.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, let's give a quick summary of what we did here, because there were the two sides of the sale for timing there. We talked about making sure that you're timing your marketing so that the message is in front of the right people at the time they are most receptive, and you phrased it, the time they've got their wallet out, the time they're looking for a solution and ready to pay for it. But there's also that other side, which I really like that you brought up, because I think a lot of people would have focused on that first side of the sale and not the second side, which is after they've bought from you. That's a whole timing thing where there's things you can do after the sale to keep them as clients and to grow them as clients and to transact with them more. Is that a good summary?
I think that is perfect.
I thank you, sir. Do we have an action for this week?
Well, email us a better word for that particular episode. Or just actually sit down and think about the actual steps that your customer goes through from, the various buy cycles or prospect cycles or discovery cycles they go through prior to purchasing from you. And then what happens, post-sale? What sort of timing and cycle do they go through post-sale that actually is worth considering? Cool.
All right, folks, just a quick reminder for you. As Pete says, we have been out and about, and for the last couple of weeks we've been in various time zones between us. It's got quite a silly number of time zones we've been in between us over the last couple of weeks. But all the time we've been traveling, we have been looking after the Preneur community inside of, first of all, our 7 Levers home study course, which talks about all the things that we've talked about in pretty much all of our shows. It's a collection, a central repository of all the different concepts that we talk about, from upsells and cross-sells to traffic conversions, the 7 levers of business. And there's a great deal of training in that home study course. You can go and have a look at that over at 7levers.com. And we are also offering anyone that signs up to the 7levers.com home study course access to our platinum members area. Now, in there, Pete and I give pretty much one-to-one responses in some cases to people's queries, but it's a whole community area that people can talk about the topics, about anything that you come across from the whole Preneur world. All of our podcasts, all of our products, we're talking in there already about profit hacks and what went on over in Florida. And there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff in there, which people are really getting into. So pop over to 7levers.com, have a look at that home study course if you're interested in just having a more concise and focused way to apply the 7 levers of business to your business and improve the profitability. And as Pete says, every episode, thank you for listening. Thank you for being a regular listener, or if you're a new listener, thank you for joining us. Do give us your feedback on preneurmedia.tv, the website where all of the show notes and the transcripts are available for all the shows. You can contact us at support@preneurgroup.com. Send us an email. We do respond. Or give us a comment on iTunes in your country, because that will help us be promoted far and wide. And see you next week, folks.
See you guys.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gocher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at preneurmedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@preneurgroup.com.